basically what happened was that young priest who was at St. Nicholas but is now gone to Abaco, I went to him asking if he knew where St. Nicholas was. He came to me saying, well, you know, somebody is trying to make, play Monty Hall, want to play, let's make a deal. They told him that the church was landlocked, but it had a small space that was not sold when the land kind of got straightened out in the 60s. They said, well, you know, they want to get that portion. You can have a portion across the main road, which is back somewhere. So anyhow, he says, but I don't even know where it is. You know, I've been here, nobody can tell me where it is. And from some old timers, I found out sort of where the location was, and kind of rambled in the bush. They told me somebody had gone up in the bush there looking for the church one time and gotten lost and was screaming to the top of his lungs to get out. So they didn't tell me that before I went in, you know. But when they saw me come out, they said, "Well, you must be something special because we believe that place to be haunted." But anyhow, here's how the story goes. What happened was there's a rise up on top of a rocky shelf, and then there's a low portion. The rise was walled in because I guess the sea at times came all the way in if it was rough weather. Because the rest wasn't walled in, when this land was trying to be straightened out, they said, well, look, here is the church, 100 by 100, or approximately thereabouts. Well, anyhow, I kind of dug up the records, which says this is the land given by Mr. Cooper for a Anglican church. It's an acre. An acre isn't 100 by 100. So basically what happened was, it says bounded by the sea. Well, I guess they had not found this document when they were going through whatever they were going through. And now the church realized that it has beachfront property. So I don't know what is going to happen. Obviously, he had something in his mind. He didn't share it with me before he left. And who knows what's going to happen, because I don't think nobody's stationed in it yet. But there is this, and everybody agrees that it's an acre that they have. Who knows how it's going to come out, but from a history point of view.
The road separates the seaside from the church side.
No, the road is inland. The road is about a half a mile inland.
On the beach side or the seaside?
There's nothing between the church wall and the beach. And around here is the foundation of the church that's still there. Well, currently with bush. I didn't hear you.
Yes, I look at that again.
Oh, so, okay,
So that's St. Nicholas, you know.
No, St. Nicholas, yes.
Yes, St. Nicholas.
I'm not talking about St. Nicholas.
Okay.
I'm talking about the forerunner of St. Nicholas, which is St. Barnabas.
Okay, I thought you meant St. Nicholas, sir.
St. Barnabas, the church no longer exists. The property still exists, and the foundation and the wall still exists, but the church doesn't exist. Okay, it was basically, I think, in the last Anglican Quarterly journal, they said it's Mr. Cooper and one or two of his family coming from Golden Grove, and there's about 16 members coming from High Rock. So I guess, and they're meeting kind of somewhat in the middle. So instead of inconvenience 16, I guess they decided to just inconvenience the 2. And they got some land in High Rock and built St. Nicholas as a church to now serve. Because what also happened was, this was supposed to serve from High Rock to Freetown. In the 60s, Freetown moved from Old Freetown to New Freetown, which is now just before, which is really in Golden Grove now. Okay. So, and those people are mainly Baptists. So there was really nobody to serve once the Coopers left. So
Who
you're
gave
going to find an interesting story about the
St.
Coopers.
Nicholas?
I didn't hear you.
Who gave the land for St. Nicholas?
One of the Coopers, I don't remember the first name right now, but he was the first catechist. You know, if you jot me your email or something like that, when I go back, I can look at my files and tell you what that is all about and how it goes. So it was the third Anglican church to be built in Grand Bahama before the church in West End was built. They started at the same time, but St. Barnabas got to the finish line first. And in 1913, a new standby church was built due to the poor condition of the old one. And in 1916, the church consists of about 20 people, one from Golden Grove, I would say, and two, and all the rest from High Rock. So today, the church is really at what they call Gambia Point, which is the old trial farm. Because the Gambia Point, they call Gambia Point, isn't the Gambia Point on the map, but that's neither here nor there. So, and we told you about how St. Nicholas replaces St. Bahamas. Now, St. Nicholas still has the shell of the old church, and the new church is right in front of it. So in between 31 and 33, as I said, I can't find, because the quarterlies kind of have a space there. And it doesn't tell exactly, but I can pick up something in 33 that says it's operating, and something in 31 that says Golden Grove is still operating. And in 1969, a new church is built, which replaces the old one. Father D'Angelo Bo is the one who I was telling you about. He's now in Abaco. He was the last one in charge. They haven't sent his replacement there yet. And they also take care of St. Michael's and All Angels in Sweden Key. St. Michael and All Angels in Sweden Key, they have a very interesting history too. Basically, Sweden Key were Baptists, but they wanted their children to have some education. So the Anglicans sent a teacher down because the Board of Education only could support one school because of the low population density in Grand Bahama. That was an 8-mile rock, which was the most populous settlement. Well, Sweden's Key is about 60 miles away, and it's on a key. Okay, so the Anglican, through the Ray Society and one other educational society, was supporting schools where they can, where the Board of Education didn't have enough schools. People were too poor to have what they call a grant and aid school. The grant and aid school is the people pay half and the government pays half. So the Anglican Church really took up a lot of slack for education. And in fact, they took over the whole education system in 1871. And I believe that's how our friend Mr. Joseph Riley got down here, because they closed the school. And they were saying they closed the school because they were closing schools wherever there wasn't a population density of 10 people per mile. But the records reflect something different. Basically, there was a teacher who was there for 17 years, wasn't stayed, and the guy decided, they needed some new blood. So he found the easiest way to do was to close the school for a few years, and then they took it back over and took Mr. Addy on as the teacher for the new school, because they said he was really doing a good job. Now, St. Michael's in All Age, in 1890 the land was acquired in Sweden's Key by the trustees. By 1913, the Fifth Anglican Church was being administered by the Abaco Parish of St. Peter's. Prior to 1935, a wooden church was built by S.G. Williams, who just happens to be my grandfather. And I am told that in the 1937 or 36 hurricane, that was the only building to stand in Sweden's Key. So I guess he knew a little something about what he was doing, and everybody had to find shelter in the Anglican Church. Obviously, I didn't get the 19 whatever, but there's a new stone church now that's dedicated, and you see the interior of that at the bottom. And the church now comes under St. Nicholas of High Rock. They have one priest that shares his duties between the two, the catechist taking over whenever he's not there. Christ the King. Obviously, I'm not going to get too much into post-1930s, only to say that Christ the King is the new parish. It was dedicated in 1962. It was the first parish, new parish in Grand Bahama in 111 years. Father Claude Underhill moves from being in charge of all of Grand Bahama, and he's stationed at St. Stephen's, to being in charge of Christ the King. And the funny thing is, well, he gives up all the rest to Father, who is the future Bishop, Michael Eldon, who just had his funeral last week. He's the charge of all the churches on Grand Bahama, except Christ the King. Well, I guess he kind of gets his revenge in a while, because in a few years after that, not more than 4 years, he becomes the Bishop of the whole of the Bahamas. And in 1964, the first church hall was to be built was called St. Jude's Hall, in honor of the church building funds being realized from the selling of the old church in Smith's Point. So they called it St. Jude's, but St. Jude's didn't go away. St. Jude's came back to life. It's kind of, it's now the Little Gonzalez room more than St. Jude's. So they've given St. Jude's name back to the church, since the people got to the church finally as a parish. Now the Anglican clergy, it's very interesting. Before 1867, it was all English. The first Bahamian born were in 1867 consisted of Marshall Cooper, William Sweeten, Leandra Bruce, and William Duncan. Well, those first two names are very interesting because Mr. Marshall Cooper started out as the Sunday